Is breaking news and covering the Marlins. That's what he does. His name is Craig Mish. First of all, how are you doing, my man? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Always this time of the year is interesting, fun.
So you go to LA for the All-Star game, and a week later we lose Vin Scully, man. How about
I
that?
know. Yeah.
Huh?
Actually,
I was I was just talking about this, how when you listen to him, you know how we always talk about, dude, who cares about who the announcer is on Monday night or Sunday night, or you cared about Vin Scully. The few times that you could ever say in the history of all of pro sports, the broadcaster matters. His name is Vin Scully because whenever you turned on a radio, and I've been on the West Coast and I've turned on the radio to listen to Scully, or on television, or even when I was covering the Marlins back in the day, and he would come every once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
It was just like a dude. It was an honor. It was just one of those, you're like, I just met God. It was just one of those things. Very few times can you say the broadcaster matters. That's Vin Scully.
You're right. That I mentioned that I think on social media. But yeah, when in the old stadium, like you got to remember the Marlins started back in 1993 and
Right.
and Vin Scully from 93 probably through about 2000 and maybe 6 or 5, maybe 7, maybe a little longer than that, maybe like 10, was on their trips. Like he was on
Yeah.
their trip. And then
Yeah.
he stopped coming at some point and
Right.
still went on their trips but didn't go far east. But what he did do is even when he stopped doing that, the team still they trained for a while still in Vero Beach. I don't remember through when, maybe 5, 6, 7. And he would fly in and do a couple of spring training games. And those spring training games I would go to. And one year, I'll never forget, one year after this was when John Bowles, the former Marlins manager, he was working for the Dodgers. I was like going to go see, I would go see John Bowles when he was with the Dodgers. So I would bring my family, whatever, we would all go. And Vin Scully would come down out of the press box after the game. There would be Orlando, at least 100 people lined up out of the
Yeah.
press box, and he would stop and take pictures and sign with every single person. I mean, it
Yeah.
literally was like at least an hour of doing it. He was just, I mean, the best in the
Yeah.
business.
John Bowles, the man that looked like he was on cocaine every second of his life. God bless. I mean, seriously, it was like, yo, John, where's Montana? Where'd you leave Tony? I mean, come on. And
Yeah,
what
he had a
what
physical issue, man.
I know, but what a nice man too. What a nice man. What a great dude. But he did look like he
I
was
haven't heard
completely.
from him in a long time. I gotta
Yeah,
like see
yeah,
what's going on with him.
yeah. But those eyes, bro, those things were like headlights. All right. You predicted it. You said it. Why should they be buyers? It's not really worth it. And exactly, they weren't buyers. But it's almost like they're not buyers, but then it's also the fan base going, were you ever going to be buyers? Are you really? Because nobody believes Sherman is willing to spend. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how to look at this. Yeah, it's one of those where, and I get it. They shouldn't be buyers. You'd have to buy so much for them to become competitive. It would be kind of crazy. So walk us through the decisions.
All right. Well, I'll tackle the first subject and then I'll get to the decisions. So again, what you're saying is accurate that they shouldn't be buyers.
Right. Well,
But
you said it. You said it, not me.
right, I
You're
mean,
the accurate.
I knew that this was going to be. I mean, I watch the team every day. So, but again, they are still 29th in attendance. I personally don't think had they spent another $100 million this offseason on Castellanos or anyone else, that would have changed. The key is, and it always will be here, I don't think that this will change. If they're going to give a player, Orlando, a 4-year, $55 million contract, the player has to be good. The player has to be good. If they're going to give a 3-year contract for $36 million in the same offseason, which they did last year,
Yep.
the player has to be good. They
Right.
gave 2 players that money Am I trying to pretend the Marlins are going to spend like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres? Never,
No, nobody's
never,
expecting that. No.
never. But your point is well taken, and we're hearing a lot of it now. When are they going to spend? When are they going to spend? And it's easy to say that looking back now. They didn't break the bank, but they did give 2 long-term contracts last year, and both players this season were busts. So
I get that, but are you settling for lesser players, and that's what you're giving contracts to?
of course,
Should
of
you have
course,
tried to get better players that could be? Because I mean,
right,
when they
but
signed Soler, dude, it's not like I'm looking at a guy with this long
agreed,
track record of,
agreed.
you know what I'm saying? And then and Avisale, you're kind of hoping he breaks through, but it's not.
Right. But what is it? And their track record. You're right. Track record, by the way, on both players a little bit spotty. 100%. But let's take it a step further, man. Let's really dive a little bit further. Why were both busts? Why couldn't one be good? Why not?
Well,
Why did that happen?
I was there.
And
I was just,
why didn't Garcia hit 40 home runs and drive in 120? And why aren't we talking about the Marlins being 3 or 4 games better than they are? And that's a deeper issue here. It's really not the money. It's getting the right guys. Like
right. Okay. So you don't have the right front office people, is what you're saying right now.
Thus far, they have not proven to succeed. They have not. They have not. In the past,
were those calls Kim Eng, or were those calls Derek Jeter?
well, Derek Jeter was more or less Avisale Garcia. I mean, really. Okay. I mean, the organization is going to take the bullet for this, but inevitably,
right.
That's
why I ask you, because I know you're going to know who's responsible for those guys.
Yeah, there's no team willing to give Avisale Garcia 4 years except the Marlins, and that was the only reason why he came to play for the Marlins, is because he got the 4th year here, and that's right. The reality of this. And by the way, he's not going to be the last guy that they're going to have to overpay on to get somebody to come play here. The notion that, respect to Derek Jeter on this, but the notion that Derek used to say that players want to play here and players want to be here. I mean, come on, man. Like, get real. Like, this is not an easy place to play. There's nobody watching in the stands a lot of times. And it's not that easy to hit home runs and get a bigger contract. Like, Jock Peterson is not going to sign here for 1 year and $8 million thinking, oh, I can't wait to get to Miami so I can hit my 30 home runs and then get 20 million. It's not happening. Right. Kyle Schwarber had no interest in coming here, and he's got 30 home runs, right? So, just to make sure that we're clear on this, they need to spend more money. They need to get better. But let's not forget what happened in this offseason. They signed 2 guys to mid-level contracts, and both were complete busts this season. Right. And that, to me, is the bigger story, as opposed to like the not spending anything. Had they not spent anything, you could come back to me, Orlando, and say, well, what do you expect? They did 0. They signed 1 guy to $5 million. And then I'd be like, dude, you're totally right. Like, they didn't do anything, but they tried. I mean,
you're telling us, who cares if you have a checkbook if you don't know how to use it, basically.
That's that. And by the way, they signed Sandy to a long-term extension too. But again, regardless of these things, you can't say they did nothing. They definitely tried. They tried on a budget, true, but even on a budget, Tampa Bay seems to find a way to succeed at doing these things. The Cleveland Guardian.
And by the way, to back up what you're saying is, to their credit, they've drafted a crap ton of pitchers, and they've developed a few, but they don't develop enough bats. And so if you're not, and if you're going to be the Utah Jazz, and if you're going to be the Indiana Pacers, well, okay, you're not a free agent destination, which is what this Miami team isn't at the moment. Okay, so if you're not a free agent destination, well then, man, we better get good at drafting and developing, because the only way you're going to get to that point is like what the Panthers have done. That they hit on a couple of really young guys who are super talented. They signed them as their core. Correct. And now they've had enough success that they can go out and bring people in now. But that's the commitment that we've seen from Viola and Sifu that we have not seen from the Marlins. They've got it seems like to me, they've got a first hit on the JJ Bledays of the world, and those kind of guys have to come through and become great hitters. So then you can prove to people that, okay, now we've developed, we're going to keep, and now we're going to add in free agency.
But
Agree or disagree?
well, agree to a degree.
Okay.
Because let's think of it this way. The Marlins still, let's say, have a top 10 farm system in baseball. It's not quite as good as they wanted it to be, and maybe it's not as bad as some people think it is. But you have this scale, right? And you have this scale of prospects, okay? And their success, Orlando, and in this hand I have the pitchers, and in this hand I have the prospects that are the hitters. And it's like this,
Oh
okay?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have
Yeah.
this in the left hand, right?
Right.
So take the left hand and
And
trade to make this hand better. And they
right.
haven't done that. And they haven't done that. They have to do that this offseason. They have got to tip that scale in a way that makes sense. And that is the dynamic that's missing here. And that's where, by the way, they don't have to spend the money. They can
Right.
make a really good trade by trading a high-end pitcher that they have for a high-end hitting prospect to potentially fill that void. That's another way to make that happen, like they did when they traded Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm Jr. But the job is not done. They must continue along those lines. They did not do it here at the trade deadline, which now they've kicked the can again. All right. I mean, what am I going to say? I'm still going to be doing this. You're kicking the can again with me. Now let's see what happens in the winter. But how many times can you kick the can? I mean, I don't know.
Oh no, people already they're the apathy's already set in years ago. They until they do what the Panthers have done, that's the only way they're going to crawl back to people. They have to make a commitment, man, and a commitment where they start to see that things change and they win and all that kind of stuff. Well, you broke news yesterday on Mattingly and his future.
Yes.
It seems like he's not necessarily comfortable with what's going on. I mean, that line you had where he wants to be where he's wanted.
Right.
So fill us in on all of that.
Sure. So listen, with Donnie, now to be clear, I'm not around and at the ballpark pregame and postgame like a lot of the other folks who cover the team are. So I want to be very clear on that. But I have, through the years, in my opinion, developed a very solid working relationship with Don Mattingly. I personally believe that we have a tremendous amount of respect for what each of us do. And I have made it perfectly clear to him, Orlando, as I'm sure you feel this way, covering things impartially, but to a degree, when Dan Marino's sitting next to you, it's like, this is Dan Marino,
Of course.
and this is Don Mattingly, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
it's Don Mattingly here. And
yeah.
he knows I feel that way about him. We had that Hitman poster on our walls, right? We didn't have the Marlins here at that time.
No.
And so my respect level for him is through the roof. Do I think he's the best manager of all time? No. And I would tell him that. Has he had
he's the perfect player. That's what he was.
Had a tremendous run of success with the Marlins.
No, he was the perfect. He's the example of what you want a professional baseball player, how to play, how to carry themselves, all of that.
And
Don Mattingly is Derek Jeter before Derek Jeter, bro. You know,
Donnie's above Derek Jeter for me, without a doubt. So
no, but I'm just saying, as a player, he did things the right way.
Player, right? I just want to set the table there. So it's like, people will wonder, well, where is this coming from? Like out of nowhere. No, I mean, Donnie sits at that dugout every single day and answers questions about why they're not hitting and why this and that. It's time to know, from my perspective, Orlando. It's August. Last year, Donnie told the media publicly that he didn't want to be anywhere where he wasn't wanted. So he asked and received an option in his contract that had to be exercised by July something. I don't remember the date. That's my bad. July. So naturally, we're sitting here in August. I show up yesterday and I'm like, hey, man, like, you got no option for next year. Have you heard anything? What did it? And he pretty much said to me, like, I'm just non-committal at the moment as far as where my future is.
Listen, I don't think he's a great manager or anything, but I also think I don't care who the manager is. You're not winning here, dude.
You're not winning
And
with
if
that.
you're
With
not
that
winning
this
here and
year.
you don't have a
No.
chance to compete, then what are you managing for, dude? You're just
Right.
managing a minor league, major league team. That's all. You're managing a feeder system for the other teams in the league because that's all you're. So by a hair, you don't see Pablo leave, but eventually, if this is the road, Pablo's gone eventually. And so, how do you compete this way? You know what I mean?
You
And,
know
and
what?
I
And
don't,
I
e-
don't think. I don't
and I
think.
felt bad for Pablo because maybe those last couple of outings, it's because it's on his freaking mind, dude. Because
Oh,
it
well, the last
didn't
one for
look like
sure.
him.
Right, but
Yeah,
back to
poor guy.
Donnie. I think Donnie. I'll tell you, Orlando. Donnie could lose 100 games and go through a rebuild at the age of 52 or at the age of 50. He could keep doing that. But, it's getting to the point for him now. He's got a young kid who's growing up. He's got two other sons, one's in baseball. And again, it's just my opinion. I get the sense he still loves this. He still loves when JJ Blvd comes up and he can high five a new player and he can teach and he can be on the field. He still loves that. I still think he wants to be doing something in baseball, but this is a huge grind for somebody like
Yeah.
him at this point.
For anybody.
And
For
and
anybody.
and, and we're in August.
Yeah.
And there's been no talks about an extension. And you talk about being on Pablo's mind. It's probably on Donnie's mind too now. There's 2
Yeah.
months left. Is this
Yeah.
it? What's going to happen? And I think personally, he wants to be the one to make the decision at the end of the season. And I think at the end of the season, it will be his call. I do. I know that probably a lot of people feel like, oh, they're going to get rid of him, whatever. I think in the offseason, if I had to predict, I think that Donnie will stop. But I don't think that he is done with baseball. And I personally hope, in my opinion, that he can transition to a special assistant position to the GM, which is very popular. We see it all throughout baseball, where Donnie can still live in Indiana and Evansville. And you know what? A couple of weeks a month, he can fly to Miami when the team is home, get to know the new guys, still meet with the old guys, go in these front office meetings with Kim. Who knows the players on this team better than Don Mattingly does right now? And I
Right.
think it would be a wonderful way for him to still continue with the Marlins if he chooses to go that route. Orlando, he'll have no shortage of teams that will want to have Don Mattingly around. The Yankees would hire him as a special assistant like that. I think the Dodgers would bring him back as a special assistant like that. So that's a decision that's coming soon.
All right. Your thoughts on the Padres? Hell of a move. Holy.
Yeah, I think next year they're the favorites to win the World Series. This is going to be tough. Doesn't really usually work in baseball. It's like, let's get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and go win. I mean, usually that's like the runner-up. They'll have a great year. I don't think they'll win the World Series, but they'll be the favorites next year. I mean, clearly they have 3 of the best 15 players in baseball. You have to acknowledge that.
Dombrowski kind of did it in 97. Kind of did it in 97.
But go through history of the Yankees trying to do that.
No. You're 1,000% right, but they
It
actually
absolutely
pulled
worked
it
in
off.
97. It worked.
Yeah, in 97 they pulled it
Oh,
off.
without a doubt. It worked. Without a doubt.
And the magic of building the 2003 team off of that fire sale. Holy shit, dude.
But you think of all the other teams that have won the World Series since 97, Indians at the time, now Guardians, Indians, homegrown teams.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mostly Philadelphia, Utley, Howard, homegrown player. Like it usually is like the Yankees pivoted and started signing all those free agents. Like
No, but it was off of a homegrown core. Really? Because it was
all those championships
Bernie,
they won.
Posada, yeah, all those.
Right, but what
It was
happened
home.
after they got older? They started signing Teixeira and Giambi
Right.
and
Right.
Soriano and
Right. Then it didn't work.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
No. Do you like them this year finally to win it all?
Yankees?
Yeah.
No, Houston still.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at Craig Mish. And of course, Swings and Mishes. That is the podcast. And of course, the Sports Grid. Tell them about the Sports Grid, my man.
Absolutely. So I'm on Sports Grid coming up in an hour from now, 2:00 Eastern, talking about the business of sports betting, going over the Major League Baseball trade deadline. And then I'm on Sports Grid on Fantasy Sports today, every morning, 11:00 Eastern till 12. It's totally free. It's streaming. If you have a Samsung TV or if you have a Vizio TV, you don't even need to do anything except to connect to the internet, and you can watch the shows on TV and then also on our app as well.
So you're not on a radio station?
I am not. Well, it's streaming. It's all streaming. It's like you. So I'm doing the same thing.
I know. I'm joking.
Oh yeah, you were kidding, right? You're kidding. You were kidding, like me.
It's dying.
I did a podcast the other day with somebody from one of the stations I used to work at, and we were just like reminiscing live on the air, and I told the story that I've told with you about how the program director told me, no fantasy football will never be popular, and sports betting will never be legal. Those are two things that were like.
I talked about this earlier because that article came out from Odyssey that they're going to be filing for bankruptcy, and you know this because you've been in the business a long time. We've had bosses that have never done our jobs, and then they're telling us how to do our jobs.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But the thing is, what is amazing to me, and this is, listen, as an individual person, I don't tell anybody how to do their job, and it's no indictment on any boss that I've ever worked for or whatever. But like, how is it that Orlando Alzugaray always knows the future? Sees the forest, there's the trees. I know this is where I'm going to go. I know, and you just keep on going. And yet, the people who are in charge are just like only see like, right? Like,
no, the people that are in charge put on the same radio show in the same market on two stations. You know what I mean? The people that are in charge go and build a building in El Portal. It's like, seriously, dude?
I'll never get it.
These are the things that go on. Let's get rid of the people that bring revenue in. Yeah, no, of course, because that makes sense. Keep people on the air that can't do a live spot. Hire athletes that can't read a sentence. Yeah, no, these are the people that are in charge, bro.
No, it's just.
And so then they wonder why they're broke. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's hilarious, you know?
Yeah. No, I keep grinding like you, man. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And I'm not, that's why like 2 years ago, I was like so happy that I was getting fired because I'm like, I know where this is going and it's not you guys. I got to go start this thing.
Right.
Let me go to digital.
It always works out for the people who work the hardest in the end.
Right. Exactly. And that's it. In the end, we'll find the people that will team up with us because they know that we're the ones that actually are paying the dues and working hard. All right, Mish Meister, I appreciate you, man. Much love. We will catch up next week here in the batter's box. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a great day.
This is the Big O Show.